Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Javier with The Real Javier Novoa. And today I have a very, very special guest. It is a Wim Hof method teacher that is in breathing and in the cold plunges and just in the great system that was invented or devised by Wim Hof. His name is Kitaro Waga. He is a Swiss teacher of Japanese background, half Swiss, half Japanese, and his channel is incredible. It's called Kitaro Waga, and I would argue that his channels had more of an instructional impact on my practice of the Wim Hof method than Wim Hof himself. I think he's taken it further. He's integrated the Wim Hof approach with a lot of other approaches. So I just wanted to have a conversation with him. So Kitaro, thank you so much for joining me today on The Real Javier Novoa.
Great to be here, and thank you for the kind words, Javier. Appreciate it.
So you must have had a very interesting background coming from, you said, a father of Japanese origin and then a mother of Swiss origin. How did that meeting come about?
Yeah, it's interesting because first of all, my father wasn't living in Japan. That's a rarity in itself back then. So he was one of the very few Japanese people who, I mean, there were some, about the majority of Japanese people, they stay in Japan. Anyway, he was working for a trading company in Beirut, but at the time Beirut wasn't political safe, so he was stationed in Athens. Because he was working 25 days in a month outside of Athens, he basically gave away his flat for free to travelers. And yeah, my mom was a traveler, and so she heard of this Japanese guy who was living in Japan, who was giving away his flat for free under the condition that they had to clean it. So, and she was in India at that time, and so she heard of that guy, and so she came to Athens to live for free in Athens.
It was like an older version maybe of Airbnb or maybe even couch surfing, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because he wasn't using the flat, so he was just offering
And so
it to other people.
they met and they fell in love and started dating.
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
And your
exactly.
father, did he go back to Switzerland with her?
No, first we stayed in Athens for the first, when I was born, for 2 years, I think. My brother was born there as well. And then they had to find out where to live, either locate to Japan, back to Japan, or to Switzerland. And we started with Japan, but my mother didn't like it at all. So then we moved back to Switzerland. We moved a lot in Switzerland as well. So basically every 2 years, I moved my location to another place.
So you never had sort of this nationalistic feeling that most people do because you were sort of moving around in your youth. You had a lot of different identities.
Yes, I have, but most of my life I've been in Switzerland, growing up. But it's just we located a lot in Switzerland itself. But being a kid of a Japanese father and Swiss mother, I was always in between nationalities, I think. And I mean, it wasn't showing itself when I was playing with friends, but just, I mean, yeah, a feeling of identity maybe. I was feeling part Japanese, but I don't really know the culture. But at the same time, I'm not really Swiss looking. But I think nowadays it's not a big problem because cultures are mixing up more and more. So
my father's from Mexican background and my mother's from American background. I don't look like I'm Mexican, but I have a Mexican Spanish name. So I identify with the way you felt also. So did you get into any of these spiritual modalities as a child? Were you interested in spirituality? Did your father teach you anything, maybe about Zen or anything like this?
I was always inherently interested in those kind of things. It's all started with martial arts, and especially in the traditional martial arts, there's always this component of spirituality because it started off as a basic self-defense practice, but over time, more modalities came into the traditional martial arts. So it doesn't matter if you look at Chinese martial arts or Japanese martial arts, or even other cultures like Philippines, Indonesia, and stuff like that, and countries like that. They all tend to have a health component and a mind component that, yeah, mixing together in this whole thing called spirituality. So, and yeah, I practiced that a lot as a kid.
And you started very young, like maybe we're talking about before your teenage years in martial arts?
Around teenager years, I started off with a classical gymnastic education in sports because where I lived at that time didn't have any martial arts school around close to me. So I started with gymnastics. But I was always, especially because my father was Japanese, I always had this romantic notion that every Japanese person was automatically a karate master or something like that, or a ninja. So I was always believing, even though I knew that it wasn't true, but I still hold on to that belief that somewhere my father had these ninja or samurai skills just because he was Japanese. So I romanticized a lot about these things. So I talked a lot about those topics with him because we we have my family have ninja blood in our veins because he studied ancient Japanese history, and yeah, we still have some. We have two sides. So one side and Waga is a very traditional name, and we used to be a samurai family back at the old times. And we also were a ninja family, apparently, as my father claims. I don't know if it's true, but there is a small village called Waga in the Japanese mountains, and they even have a Japanese mountain called Waga.
We were taught in school that the samurai were good and the ninja were bad. Is that true? Or is it that the ninjas were sort of independent? What was the difference between a samurai and a ninja? Just out of curiosity.
I think the best way to put it is that a samurai was basically a knight. So he could be good or could be bad. I mean, it's always a matter of perspective. And ninja was basically a mercenary. So you could hire a ninja, but not only for for war, but also for like intelligence stuff, like an agent. So I think to put it in maybe US terms, a samurai would be a soldier, like an elite, could be an elite soldier. But it was just a class. It was a soldier class. Samurai had also different functions. So not only was he there for fighting, but also some diplomatic stuff and so on. And the ninja was basically the intelligence agency like CIA or FBI.
You couldn't choose these paths, they were basically chosen for you, correct? As a
Yeah,
class.
yeah, I think that's true. Many things back in the days.
Do you,
That's the way it
incidentally,
was.
do you speak Japanese?
No, I'm ashamed I can't, but it's quite common when you have a Japanese father. Kids tend to not be able to speak Japanese very well, but if they have a Japanese mother, they most certainly can speak Japanese. So that's why it's called mother tongue, maybe. I'm learning a little bit on and off because I think Japan is a very fascinating country. So
It
I
is.
still feel connected to it. So I want to be able to speak better, and I still have relatives there.
So, what I've been able to piece together from your videos, yeah, I think you continued to pursue the martial arts path. Did you pursue a career in engineering in the beginning, was it? Or something?
No, no, I was uh, I began university very late because up to high school, I became a martial arts instructor, helping out my teacher. But eventually, I made the decision to, yeah, to go to university a bit later. And I studied media science and publicity.
It makes sense. Your videos are so well edited. In fact, I would love to learn editing from you. They're very beautifully edited. It looks like a professional making them. So, did
I
you
didn't
work?
learn that in university. I
Oh
learned
no!
that in high school.
Oh, in
In
high
high
school.
school, I was interested in many like how do you say it, free topics. You could choose topics. They weren't really essential, but you could choose them at certain times. And I was always choosing something that had to do with films. And I love films and movies, and I love writing, and creating videos is the best of both worlds. You write something, you have an idea, you need to write a piece together, a piece of content, and you need to film it. So it's basically the perfect environment for what interests me.
So, did you work in the corporate world for a while?
Yes, I did. Yeah. I worked in a marketing agency, digital marketing agency.
But then you were able to sort of retire at a very early state, or perhaps we wouldn't term it as retire, but pursue your true passions.
Yeah, I think it's always a fluid motion there, because I always had something as a side hustle. When I
Mhm.
started working in the corporate environment, I was always still teaching martial arts, not because of any specific goals to only do martial arts, but just as a side project. Then it transitioned to taking on smaller companies privately, yeah, as a freelancer. And eventually I transitioned to, yeah, only freelance. And now I'm slowly transitioning to, yeah, YouTube only / content creation / yeah, teacher for breathwork students.
And how did you get introduced to the Wim Hof method? It seems like a natural progression from martial arts.
It seems like, but it was more of a coincidence, because one of my students, it was a very long time ago, told me, he was a scientist, a biology scientist, and he told me about this interesting guy called Wim Hof, who is able to regulate his temperature, was doing marathon in the snow and stuff like that. And I find that very interesting, because he was a scientist, and the crucial thing that he was saying is that he was willing to work with the scientific community to, yeah, to basically that they were able to study him, to see what was going on, and yeah, that he somehow could regulate his autonomic nervous system, and through breathing and deliberate cold exposure. And I found that very interesting.
And how long ago
Uh,
was this when you were introduced to this person?
Maybe 20 years ago,
Oh,
20
wow.
or 15 years ago.
Are you certified with the Wim Hof organization? Did you actually go through the course?
Yeah, yes, I'm certified. Yes. You start off with the basic Wim Hof method fundamentals course, and then you need to have like some experience in teaching or coaching people. And this is and after that, if you want, you can proceed to the Wim Hof Method Academy, where you go through. I don't know how it is nowadays, but back then it was first you went for an initial advanced workshop to the Netherlands, a weekend long, and then there was a year long or half a year long self-study course that you had to take, and and finally you got you went to Poland, and where you had like the final test or the final module of the Wim Hof Method Academy, where you got certified. if you passed the test.
Sure. And did you meet Wim Hof there and practice with
Yes, I
him?
did. Yeah, he was there as well. Not the whole time, but a few days.
And were you able to speak with him or get a sense of his personality, or was it just a very short introduction?
Yes, I was able to. I wouldn't call him a friend or something like that. It was so just a short time, and he's meeting so many people. But he's very similar to my former grandmaster. Quite a charismatic person, very intense and yeah, energetic. So not like me. I'm more on the calmer side,
You are a very calm
inherently.
individual, very zen.
But I also embrace that. I don't think you always you need to be this extrovertive person all the time. I think introverts make very good teachers as well. Many teachers, different teachers appeal to different students. So there's this saying, when a student is ready, the right master will come. And to me, it's always also a thing of you need to find the right teachers that suit to you, because yeah, it doesn't mean the teacher is bad if you don't resonate with the person. It might just be that you need a different person as a teacher. So yeah, I think people tend to fall into this trap a lot, that they think the best performers are automatically the best teachers. And in my experience, that's not always the case, because you never know how these people became the best at their field. It might be just genetics, it might be just that they're very talented. And teaching is a totally different skill than learning. So that's why I think people who make great teachers are really diving into how to learn and how to learn the things, and why are people learning certain things and others don't. Or when I teach it this way, some people get it, other people don't. And when I teach it that way, these people will get it, but these people don't. And I think you gain different skill sets how to teach a certain topics to certain types of people. And yeah, you need to hone that skill. If you just think all the responsibility is on the student, and if the student doesn't get it, it's just because he doesn't work hard enough. I think that's a very superficial mindset about teaching.
Doesn't go into the actual duty of the didactic individual. But
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
do you recommend people who are doing the Wim Hof method to sort of like watch your videos, read Wim Hof's book, and just start doing it themselves, or do you recommend that people actually first seek out a teacher and start doing it with them rather than start doing it themselves immediately?
It's a very basic protocol that you need to follow. I think it's something that you can learn on your own, but to really understand the underlying physiology and mechanics, it's wise to do at least in-person workshop, maybe. Also, if you have never taken an ice bath before, it's also safer if you do it with an instructor, someone who knows the ins and outs and what can go wrong, and is able to, yeah, to deal
You
with
don't want to
the
just jump in like that.
yeah, exactly.
So, if you were to give us a breakdown, like for a layperson, of a quick summary as to why would someone try to do this method, what are the physiological benefits? And can you just explain a little bit of the method and the mechanics behind it in a very simple way?
Yeah, I think the simplest way to put it is it's a way to control your autonomic nervous system. And this is basically just how it's much more than that, but to put it in simple terms, how alert you are, or to control how energetic you are and how relaxed you are, because those are two different sides of a spectrum. And with the Wim Hof method, you are able to tap into that and hone these things. Because normally we react automatically to external stimuli. Like if I think the term that most people can relate to that is a fight or flight response or a stress response when they need to hold a speech in front of people, for example, especially for people like me who are introverts. This can be a very scary thing to do. And just thinking about that can engage our fight or flight response. And this comes with certain physiological responses like a quicker heartbeat, a dry mouth, and kind of a nervousness that is showing itself with shaking or stuttering. All these are just natural occurrences of the sympathetic nervous system, and these things, yeah, they have a reason, an evolutionary reason to show itself in these forms, because back when we were all hunter-gatherers, it saved our lives because it was our sense to seek safety, to flee or fight, or for other psychological things. For example, it was important to stay in a tribe. So when we get nervous, exposing ourselves and going against the common crowd, maybe we get nervous and we get this impulse of anxiety because we're going against the norm. Back then, those things were very useful because it helped us staying in the tribe, because the tribe, the community, was safe, and being an outcast meant almost certain death. So those things are useful in the first place, but nowadays it can hinder our growth and can be things that impact us negatively on the long run. So the Wim Hof method is able to tap into that power. So I can assist my response, or I can deliberately control the response through breath work and cold exposure. So I'm able to regulate my energy much better. Also, if I need to focus, I can use deliberate breathing or cold to be able to be more alert and focused.
Now, can you sort of explain to us, there's this paradox, both the hyperventilating and the cold exposure stimulates what they call the stress response, but yet when we stimulate that stress response, we become imminently calm. How is that by stimulating the body's stress response, we go into sort of bliss state?
I think the simplest way to put that is to compare it with a workout, like a physical workout. Because I think what's really bad for us, for our health, is to be in this slightly erased stress mode. It's not like a tiger is showing up where we get this real spike in stress response. It's more like a slight elevation of stress for a prolonged time. I think that is bad for us, where we have slight increase in inflammation for a long time, and the stress is always there, and we never calm down. But what the Wim Hof method does is, through these hyperventilation kind of breathing, is on one side we engage our stress response really strongly, compare it to a hard physical workout. Our heart rate tends to go up. Hormones like noradrenaline is flooded in our system. So there was an experiment where they measured the same increase in adrenaline like someone who would go bungee jumping for the first time. So it was a lot. And the other side of the spectrum is are the breath holds, where we calm ourselves down and go into this deep meditative state. So we have like both sides of the spectrum that are very far apart, that leaves us in this kind of energized and yet very calm state of mind. So, and a hard workout does the same thing. So you could go out for a run or lift heavy things, and you might feel the same way after that.
Like a lot of your videos, you talk about the fact that there are many ways to get to the same end. Like there's mindfulness, there's breathing, But certainly for me, the breathing is the most powerful one because it seems like just the most attention grabbing one. Like if you're just in a very anxious state or a state of anger, if you do the breath, that really just grabs your attention, correct? And it seems to me the quickest way to get to a state of stasis.
Yeah, I think
Mhm.
tackling the energy level first before you try to change your emotional state is a wise decision, and it's easier because yeah, thinking at least for me, if I'm in a bad mood or in a funk, and then I just try to meditate, I tend to hone in on this feeling. It's because in meditation or being mindful, I just be aware of this thing. And it's a good thing to be aware, because if I numb myself, I'm not even aware of my problems. But if I want to get out of this state, it's not always the best. The best way to go out of this state, because I'm just being aware of this sensation, and it can even grow stronger, and that doesn't solve the problem. So
So about where you are on the
yeah.
scale. So you also addressed in one of your videos that I think you said a few minutes of this breath work has been scientifically shown to give the same benefits as a long time spent in meditation. Is that correct?
I think what you're referring to was this one study that was published in Cell Report. It was by Andrew Huberman's lab from Stanford. And what they did, they measured 5 minutes. What would 5 minutes of different practices, what an effect would these practices have on stress regulation, or how stress we would feel, or the ability to alleviate stress. And they took different methods. One was mindfulness, and the other one was not the same thing as Wim Hof method, but kind of a Wim Hof type exercise, breathwork exercise, and cyclic sighing, where you do a double inhale and a long exhalation. And what was box breathing was the other one. And they could all alleviate stress, but not at to the same degree. So mindfulness was at the lowest end of the scale, while practices like cyclic sighing, for example, were on the top of the scale, how effective they would be to alleviate stress.
Not only that, but and I've noticed this, I've been practicing the Wim Hof method for probably close to 5 years. I've also watched your videos. It's a cure for like I used to get sore throats every year. Now, when I
Mm-hmm.
feel myself getting a sore throat, and this is not medical advice, by the way, so don't nobody take it as such, but I haven't had a sore throat in years. It gets started, then I do the breathing. I do like 5 rounds of the Wim Hof breathing, and it's gone. How does that happen? Sore throat, cough. These are things that I've confirmed and I'm sure you've confirmed it also in your own practice.
Yeah, I noticed that I don't get sick, or I don't get sick as often anymore as I used to. And I was always a very healthy guy, but
Sure.
but maybe once a year I was sick, really bad. And but once I started Wim Hof method, it could be from the cold showers, it could be from the breathing. I don't really know, but um, I'm always the guy who doesn't get sick. And especially with kids, people say to you that once you have kids, you're always sick, because when the kids are sick, you're sick, and they catch sicknesses or bacteria everywhere, and yeah, you're basically sick all the time. But that's true for my wife, and I work from home as well, so I'm seeing my
Mhm.
kids as much as she does, but it doesn't hold true to myself. I very rarely get sick. The underlying mechanism there is that a stress response is actually good for your health. So when you're doing a cold shower, it could be the cold shower, it could be the breathing. You can choose both options. the elevated stress response and flooding your system with adrenaline and stuff like that, you also reduce inflammation, and you deactivate, or not deactivate, you temper down your how do you say it, the innate immune system response. And they measured that in a study where they injected people with a bacteria called E. coli. It's a harmless bacteria, but it normally causes flu-like symptoms to 100% almost. So you get that injected, and then your innate immune system would respond by raising temperature. You would get a fever, nausea, headaches, and stuff like that. All the things that you normally get when you have the flu. And what they measured with Wim Hof participants who would do the breathing before and while having, or after the injection, right after or in the middle of the injection, they were either not getting those symptoms or to a much less degree, they were just mild symptoms, so to speak. And they attributed that they would reduce all their inflammatory markers and proteins in their body, and so the innate immune system was less likely to react through inflammation and rising body temperatures and all those things. At the same time, they measured an increase in white blood cells. The white blood cells, they are part of our system to fight our bacteria directly without rising our body temperature and stuff like that. I'm no doctor, and this shouldn't be medical advice as well. So
Absolutely
I'm
not.
just stating the studies.
What the studies and what we know. What I love, and again, we're not doctors here, but what I love about the Wim Hof method, Kitaro, especially in the West, it seems like we outsource everything. We outsource our health. We outsource certain functions that are supposed to be done by us. But this sort of gives us back control. It gives us a measure of control over our health, gives us a measure of control over our mood, and that makes a lot of difference. And I was hoping today, if you'd be willing, I was really hoping if you could give us a demonstration. And I wanted a demonstration of two things because I'm still trying to practice this in my mind. The first one is, of course, just maybe like 20 of the actual normal Wim Hof breaths. And the second thing that I wanted to see you do was, the power breathing, correct? And I do this, like, for example, if I feel tired at work, I do like 20 of the power breaths the way I think they're supposed to be done, that I read in the book that says that, you increase the speed of it. But I'd love to see a demonstration of that to see how an actual coach would do it. So could you demonstrate for us maybe like 20 of the normal Wim Hof breaths, just for those who are new to it?
Sure, but I want to do it a bit more nuanced. You have two parts of it: deep breathing or hyperventilation, like kind of breathing. So the important part here is, even though it's not quite true, but it should feel like you are inhaling more than you would exhale. So you put emphasis on the inhalation and just have a short, relaxed exhalation. This would look something like this. You take a full inhale and then let go of the breath. Because when you take a full inhale and fill your lungs to your full capacity, it takes some practice to be able to do that, and also diaphragm control, so you get better with practice. So don't just mindlessly inhale fast. So try to tune into your body sensation and to feel how your diaphragm is moving and what muscles are engaging, because you can fall into the trap to get too tensed up, and that is counterproductive. You should be as relaxed as possible. So I do have a few breaths like this. before I comment on some things. So I will do one round of the Wim Hof method breathing, and then I comment on certain things.
Yes.
Okay, I will
please.
start. I will start now. This is the breath retention phase where I'm holding my breath on after an exhalation. And I will do that as long as I'm comfortable holding my breath. And then I inhale again. Hold it in my lungs. Feel the abdominal pressure, but don't push it into the head or anywhere else. Just feel it and then let it go after 10 to 15 seconds. But this would be one round. So you should do about 30 to 40 deep inhalation kind of breathing first, and then hold your breath for as long as comfortable, and then do the inhalation and hold for about 10 to 15 seconds, and then let go, and then start the other round. So you see you have these two components, and you have the recovery breath. But let's look at the first two components first. You have the inhalation part, the deep inhalation, where you engage a whole torso with your breathing. So don't breathe shallowly. You never want to sacrifice depth of breath for speed. So you always want to make sure that you put emphasis on a full inhalation, and then put emphasis on the exhalation in the sense of letting it go as relaxed as possible and fast.
Are you always filling your lungs fully when you do this?
Yeah.
Sure. Till you can't go anymore.
Exactly, yeah.
By the way, incidentally, when you're doing the 15-second hold, you said don't squeeze it into your head, but does not Wim Hof say that you're supposed to squeeze your muscles and your torso? Or is that a different modality?
It's a different modality, and also the Wim Hof Method Academy evolved over times, because first it was Wim alone together with his son, and more it grew to a bigger entity, and they stayed really clearly when I started the Wim Hof Method Academy that there's Wim Hof and then there's the Wim Hof Method Academy, because Wim tends to do some things differently than the academy, because the academy, they need to wait until certain studies verify certain things, and they always also need to be aware of some dangers, because it can be dangerous if you practice it wrongly, especially if you practice it in the wrong environment, like in water or stuff like that.
Oh, of course. And we've heard a lot about this. Can the squeeze be dangerous?
It could be dangerous in the sense because you work with pressure, and working with pressure, and especially around the head, is always dangerous in the sense if you have like a cardiovascular problem or have elevated blood pressures, and then work with pressure on top of that, can be dangerous. So that's why
So we
the
don't
academy,
recommend everybody to do that.
no, the academy doesn't recommend the power breathing, for example. In the beginning, for all fundamentals workshop, we shouldn't teach the power breathing. And also the squeeze into the head is not recommended for for beginners.
I see.
Takes some degree of awareness, because also the breathing takes awareness, and many people just mindlessly do vigorous inhalation without really tuning into the body's sensation. And what can happen is that your state can get worse, especially if you're not mindful at what state you're starting from. Because when you're already in a quite high energy, negative emotion state, like anxiety, for example, and then you just mindlessly engage in vigorous inhalation, this could make your situation worse. You can get into a panic attack. And there's also a condition called the lock-up, where because of the strong decrease or offloading of carbon dioxide with the vigorous inhalation, you change the gas level between oxygen and carbon dioxide a lot. And what tends to happen is that you're getting this tingling in the fingers, maybe, lightheadedness. It's because of the decrease in carbon dioxide. But the next level of that would be that you have involuntary muscle contractions, and that can show itself by having so-called T-Rex hands, where your hands or fingers or feet, they contract and you can't voluntarily control it anymore. And the next level of that would be something that almost looks like epileptic seizure.
And this has happened with people doing the power breathing?
No, also the normal Wim Hof method breathing.
Wow.
There's this one documentation from Yes Theory, this YouTube channel, this famous one. I think it was in that documentary that there was one guy going into a so-called lockdown. So it's very scary to have someone like that as an instructor. I haven't had one. So it normally happens if you just if you always push it further and do it harder, do it more, put more vigor into it, and and then keep.
Like you said, like Wim seems to be sort of like he's willing to do crazy stuff sometimes. he's
a very energetic guy, and sometimes this can lead to lockdowns, like like in one of the
So what you're saying is you wouldn't even want to demonstrate the power breathing. It's not something that you would even practice or do.
I do it sometimes. I do it not so often because I don't see so much benefits. Just accept the feeling that I get, like this or euphoric feeling or this blissful feeling. But apart from that, I don't see any benefits in my lifestyle whatsoever. I can, but with the normal Wim Hof method breathing, I feel better mood regulation, better energy level. I will get that just from the normal Wim Hof method breathing. The power breathing is just, sometimes I like to do it just because of this mental state that I can get in. It's not like a transcendence or like an enlightenment, but it certainly feels like an out of the world experience somehow, or out of the body experience somehow. But just because I can get into that state deliberately doesn't mean I always need to get into that state. You know what I mean?
So this is like a tool basically that's not to be used frivolously, is what you're saying. This is to be used
tactically and more intentionally. And if you just want to feel good, I think there are other methods that have, because it's this method, this particular breathing style isn't very well studied. So, and then, as I said, working with pressure holds some dangers. And so you need to be mindful of that.
I'm glad that you told our viewers that, because a lot of people, they just do it and they don't really reflect on it. But I wanted to go a little bit into the cold exposure. Sure. Are you someone who can walk barefoot in the snow and so on and so forth? And with only shorts?
Right now it's not winter. It always needs some adaptation time. But this can be really short, this adaptation time. So I do practice things like that, like walking barefooted in the snow. I haven't run a marathon barefooted. So, but I think of cold exposure more as how you can utilize the cold in everyday lives. And this is always very adaptable to where you live, in what environment you are, and what tools you have. Because I don't own one of these expensive ice baths that are cold or have ice in it.
Nor do I.
In summer and winter. So I need to work with the tools that I have. And these are cold showers and cold plunges. Because even in summer, when I fill my bathtub with cold water. It's not very cold, but it still gets this cold shock. But I still get into this cold shock because of the temperature difference. Because when I'm hot, my veins are dilated and I feel hot, I'm sweating, and the fall in temperature is very high, even though the water might not be that cold. So I will still get the benefits from the colder water, even though it's not freezing water. It just doesn't look as badass as if you would jump into a frozen lake. But the response is quite effective still.
And what are those benefits? If you just want to sum them up.
For me, the most beneficial benefits would be mental regulation. I tend to be much calmer, or I tend to react less impulsive to stressors, psychological stressors. So I am calmer around around my kids when they do certain stuff that normally would stress me out. And yeah, also be more patient. I would have a calmer, or my mood would be more on the positive side throughout the day, no matter what the day will bring, what challenges would arise. I'm still able to face those challenges with a calmer mind. As I mentioned, I get less sick. And other benefits would be, just the energy level too, because sometimes a cold shower can cure, for me at least, a bad night's sleep, or at least in the beginning. It helps me to wake up and be active, especially if I have something in the calendar that it's important. I take a cold shower, not only in the morning, but also in the afternoon when I have an important meeting, something where I need to have this rise in alertness. I will most likely do a breathwork session and a cold shower just to prepare my mind.
I've noticed when I get less sleep, when I take the cold shower, I feel awake, and I feel awake for the rest of the day. It's an amazing function of that.
Yeah, you will get this boost in adrenaline and short cortisol spikes. So you have this boost in energy. So
now, if I may ask a personal question, why did your wife stop practicing it? Did it have something to do with any adverse effect?
No, I think it's just time and family life, busy lives. She does the other things. She's really into CrossFit and yoga and those, or hot yoga and those things. Especially the hot yoga is very beneficial for her mood and her challenges. So yeah, I don't think that you need to practice the Wim Hof method or breathwork or cold exposure. This is one way, and for me, it's a very easy way to do that. But if you're not into cold showers and not into breathwork, that's totally fine, and I don't need to persuade someone to do it, because there are other ways. We need to be honest about that. It's not the holy grail of everything. It's just in my current environment and situation, it's an easy, or an maybe it's just learned, but nowadays it's a very handy tool for different challenges that I have, or different it's a very easy tool to flex around one's lifestyle, because everyone has a shower at home, everyone has access to deliberate breathing, so it's very easy to control, and we just need to be mindful and take this tool.
And it's quicker than a lot of them.
Yeah,
I like as a tool and use it. How long have you had your YouTube channel?
I think it's about 2 years now. I started off right after COVID, or in COVID, during COVID. It was an experiment that I started with because my martial arts school shut down from COVID.
Right.
So then
and you went from 0 to 70K in 2 years, 3 years?
In 2 years, I think. My oldest videos are 2 years old, I think. Yeah.
That is amazing. And did you consciously set out to make videos to get a lot of subscribers, a lot of traffic, or did you just focus on making what you loved and that just came?
No, initially I started just because I wanted to challenge myself. That's what was my initial purpose. Because as you as you know, English is not my mother tongue and not my native language, and I wanted to expose myself and grow over my comfort zone. So, and exposing myself to the public by publicly producing videos where I show my face and speak of something, speak of a topic, that was very challenging for me. And especially if you look at my earlier videos, I feel very cringe watching them because, yeah, I had to develop a lot of skills to be able to do that more confidently. And even showing up in front of a podcast was something that I would have never done before because I was too self-conscious and failing to I was afraid of failing publicly.
So you're an introvert, it seems like, but yet you've made yourself become an extrovert.
Yeah, I
So-
think try to be around a person, I guess, and I try to expand my comfort zone, and I have done that my whole life, and it generally led to a better situation afterwards.
So I love your channel. I think it was a great conversation, especially the warnings that we had about it and certain guidelines. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with the real Javier Novoa and do an interview with me. And I hope to talk to you again soon.
What's a pleasure, Javier. Thanks for having
You're,
me.